Welcome to another episode of What Did the Patient Say with Doctors Dana and Lauren Brindisi, sisters and owners of Carolina Functional Neurology Center. We are providing you answers to frequently asked questions and bringing you inside information from real conversations we have with patients on a daily basis. Our goal is to spread the truth on health and healing because we believe everyone deserves to know the answers.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of What Did the Patient Say? I'm here with my sister, Dr. Dana, and we're going to be talking all about why would you get a neurological exam if you're somebody who doesn't have primarily a neurological disorder. So, Dr. Dana, welcome. I'm so excited to be on here again with you. I know that it's been a while since we've been able to do some, and we're actually recording some of these back to back right now, which is really exciting that we've been able to find the time to do it.
Yeah, for sure. We were super pumped about this one because, we have family members that bring our patients into the office or whatever. And we have a lot of people that ask questions like, oh, should I get that one done? Or I find that I'm doing an exam and we're like testing people's cerebellum, right? And, their spouse is always over there being like, can I do that? Or mom's like laughing because somebody can't do it. And then they're like, they try to do it and they can't do it. It's like, they don't have any symptoms or anything that they would necessarily consider to be a neurological issue. But then when we get talking and we get into the nitty gritty of things, there's definitely some stuff there. Or the other category is like people who just want to make their brains as good as they possibly can be. So we kind of came up with what we think to be maybe 5 main reasons. And there's definitely more, but we thought for the purpose of today, we would talk about kind of these main 5. And you guys have heard us talk about this first one and probably the second one a ton. But if you have a thyroid issue, even if you don't have neurological symptoms, that would be a good reason to get a neurological exam. The other one is gut issues. Gut issues 100% across the board, especially if they can't find anything wrong with your gut. Get your brain evaluated. We all know the gut-brain axis. We all know that, stuff, but when you're in it, you don't often think about that. And then performance enhancement, brain optimization. So people who are working at a high level or if they're taking care of their babies at home and they just want to be better on it, more energy, all of that stuff, right? It can span any career, job, whatever. And then what was our last category that we had?
Baseline and wellness.
Oh yeah, baseline and wellness, right? So it's like, you're like, I'm good, but what if I got a concussion tomorrow and I have no idea kind of where I sat prior to? Or you're just like, hey, I go to my primary care every year and I get a checkup. Well, why not go to your functional neurologist and get your brain checked every year? I think that's cool because it's like, if you find something that is not a problem yet, maybe you could do something about it because, the brain changes so rapidly and there's a lot that can be done. It's like, but if you don't get it done and you wait for symptoms, then you just don't know.
Yeah, I think that's also an important one. Like you said, we just never know when there's going to be an injury or an accident that could happen. But there are a lot of people out there who have family members who have neurological disorders. So if there's a genetic component or a possibility of a genetic predisposition to something like dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, MS, the list could go on, things that potentially could influence your life. There are biomarkers that we can see and we can look at and monitor your brain over time.
And so many people don't know that. And so many people don't understand that you really only get diagnosed with a disorder when things have degraded so much. But things happen way in advance that you might not even know about. Or even if it's not a symptom, it's a biomarker, like you said, some things slow down, which you would never even realize in your daily life, like some of your eye movements or your gut or, whatever. And it's just like, oh, this is just me. But man, could that help a lot of people be like, hey, I have Parkinson's in my family and I also deal with constipation and I'm 25. And it's like, well, that's probably something that you might want to pay attention to. We have Alzheimer's and dementia in our family. I'm not saying that to scare anybody. I'm saying that because we do it ourselves on both sides of our family. So it's things that we preach, but we also live. And it's just important because we always say, like, now knowledge is power. And if you know your family history, and then you have tools to be able to do some sort of preventative outlook, I mean, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe we should put an episode, maybe we should put a course together on the virtual lab of like some degenerative neurological conditions and what can you do 20 years in advance to maybe help yourself. That would be a cool course.
That would be a cool course. Let's go kind of down this list and let's talk a little bit more detail about some of these reasons. So the first one's thyroid. We talk about thyroid a lot. Thyroid hormones set the pace and energy production for cells all over your body, including your brain. So thyroid symptoms can be so tricky because they can look like a whole bunch of different issues and they can affect a lot of different systems, including neurological. So we think it's extremely important for anybody dealing with any kind of thyroid issue that you're getting a more holistic view of what's going on other than just getting put on thyroid medication. So our neurological exam is going to help us better understand what your brain looks like and how that really compares to normative data. And are there other things that we can do to be supporting you? Because also this is a feedback loop. So your brain sends signals to your thyroid, but then your thyroid sends signals to your brain. So you really can't pull the two apart.
Right. Yeah. Just like they talk about the brain gut axis, right? Like there's a thyroid brain axis. And if you have thyroid issues, please go back in the archives and listen to our thyroid podcast because we talk all about, I think I might have done it on my own, but we talk all about the cascade of the thyroid, and it literally starts in your brain with your hypothalamus. So you can't separate them. But it's like in the traditional medical sense, we just talk about the gland. It's like I find myself creating this picture of the thyroid cascade for everybody, to kind of explain it. But it's like we don't have people yet that get into our office that are like, oh, I don't have any neurological issues. It's like, I have all these neurological issues. Oh, yeah, and I have Hashimoto's, or oh, yeah, and I have hypothyroidism, or oh, yeah, and I have Graves' disease. But it's like, man, is that a foundation? Like, did that come first? Is it a chicken or the egg scenario? But like, this came first. And now you're like, I have this neurological issue. Well, if we had a better baseline and we saw you before you had neurological symptoms and knew that you had thyroid, what could the future have looked like then? Who knows? And I think that's what's so cool about functional medicine and functional neurology is that we, and it sucks, right? There's no way to do a double-blind control study on preventative stuff, right? It's like, well, we think if this were to continue down this road, then you probably would have an issue, right? Because we've seen all of these clinical cases that people, that lines up. But man, how many things could we prevent just by seeing patients who recently got diagnosed with a thyroid condition?
Yeah. And I think that segues kind of into the next one because this is a big one. I mean, a lot of people deal with digestive issues, and a lot of people go to their primary care. They get sent over to gastroenterology and they're diagnosed with IBS because all the tests under the sun, the scopes, the stool tests,
it's like the anxiety of GI.
Yes. Yeah. And really it starts in your brain, right? We talk a lot about the autonomic nervous system. We talk a lot about the brain gut axis and how these two things are very intricately connected. And we understand that in a lot of neurological processes and disorders that digestive issues are on the list of symptoms for a lot of them. So we know that changes in the digestive tract and changes in the motility of the gut are influenced by your brain. And so it's very important to get your brain looked at functionally and understanding how things like the brain gut axis are working, how your limbic system's working, how your frontal lobes are working. All of these play a really crucial role in your ability to properly regulate your digestive system.
And that's like with or without a diagnosis, right? So it's like, even if you get a diagnosis of Crohn's or, whatever it may be, it's like those two things are intricately connected. It's like, we don't have to teach anybody that. Everybody knows that. Like, everybody knows there's this massive highway between your gut and your brain. But it's like when you get the diagnosis, or you get a kind of IBS diagnosis, because they're like, man, we can't find anything like structurally wrong, but there's something wrong, right? So it's like, that is kind of the catch-all thing. But either way, it's like there's this massive highway. Like, they're not separate. And you're a human. None of it's separate.
Yeah. So looking at the brain is important for that one too. The next one that we did was performance enhancement. I love this one. All the athletes out there, whether you're, a little kid and you're brand new at sports, or you are a professional athlete, a functional neurological exam is vital, because we're going to look at the nitty-gritty of the details of the function of your brain, right? I think eye movements are a great example. If you jump your eyes from one target to the next and you're not accurate in doing that, and say you take 1 or 2 steps to get there, or your reaction times are slower, there are rehab methods that we can use to actually rehabilitate and speed that process up and make these fast saccade eye movements like quicker and more accurate. And it's all in the details, and athletes definitely know and understand that.
I just keep thinking in my head, it's the difference between being Usain Bolt and whoever the other guy was, or Simone Biles and whoever the other people are.
Seriously though, but even as an assessment
Josh Allen
for your risk,
whoever those other quarterbacks are.
But your risk for concussion, right? So that's important to understand as an athlete, and it's in the details to help us better understand, like, are you more stable with your head to the left than you are to the right? That increases your risk for a concussion. If you are significantly less stable when you turn your head this way than when you turn your head the other way. Or is there a disparity in how you're able to track from one side to the other? And as an athlete, while we see a lot of people who say, oh, I never had an official concussion diagnosis, but they play lacrosse or football or soccer and they've been heading the ball, we know that these micro traumas to the head add up. And our brains are really good at compensating. So there can be small hits to the head that can influence the function of your brain, and you just keep going. And all these details are so important.
I got 2 kind of stories. We in Raleigh, we have the Hurricanes, right? And we've seen quite a few of the junior Hurricanes players. And it is shocking to put some of these little kids on balance platforms. And it's like they are competing at a young age at a very, very high level. And it's the parents are always like, yeah, but they like skate on one leg backwards with their eyes closed all the time. I'm like, but their brain is compensating for a lot of stuff. And when you isolate these things, you start to pick up these disparities in what's actually happening in real time in the brain. So it's really, it's interesting. I had the opportunity to work with the USA ski jumping team in my first job when I graduated from school. And we got to do all of their functional neurology evaluations and coach them on functional medicine. And these guys are jumping. These are the guys that are jumping off that massive hill and flying through the air. And you would think they were Olympic athletes, that their brains would be in the toppest shape, and that we would run them through these testing and we'd be, like scrounging for things that we had to help them with. It was actually the opposite. Like, the amount of problems that we found neurologically was profound and a little bit scary that, they were doing this sport with this stuff that was going on. But it's like their brains were incredible, right? It's like their brains were doing it anyway. And it was what they needed to happen was definitely happening. And even though there were some big things that showed up on their neurological testing, we could go in and just tweak a couple things and better. Like, I remember there was one guy who every time he would fly at like such a different angle. Like you would watch him and like one arm would be here and one arm would be way up here. He was one of the best. And he had some massive discrepancies from right to left in his eye movements that you were just talking about, Lauren. And we tweaked and changed a couple things. And I remember watching his next competition, and we even got, we got emails from the coaches and everything. And it was like profoundly better. And they weren't really necessarily looking for this stuff. Like I worked with somebody that works closely with them, and he was like, "Hey, what do you think about doing this?" And we were like, "Yeah, that sounds great." So we had the opportunity to do it, and it was just, I think people would be surprised. I say that because you think that when you're at such a high level, you're great, but there's always more, I think, to be done. And I think our next category is taking like that idea and just putting it into general brain optimization, right? You don't have to be jumping off a cliff to need better brain function. It's like we all need better brain function, or we could all optimize things in certain ways depending on what our day-to-day is, or, what our goals are or whatever. So if we could just get anybody in the door to be like, I want to make my brain better. What can you find and what can I do? It's like, that would be, oh my gosh, we'd all be Elon.
It's true, though. It's true. And what I say to patients a lot in the office is,
maybe people don't want to be Elon. Who else?
But highly, people just want to be successful in their lives, and they want to feel
all be
good.
Dr. Carrick.
There you go. Just successful, right? And happy, and feeling joy, and being able to move through your life with ease. And, there's just a lot of stress in life for a lot of us, and that can weigh you down. And so a neurological exam can really help to better understand, where are you using your energy, right? It's same kind of thing as we talk about the eye movements is a great example. If you are jumping to a target and it's taking you 2 times, you're using twice as much energy to do that simple thing. And all of that energy could be used for something else, right? Mm-hmm. Or if you're not quite as stable and your stability scores are even mildly or moderately reduced, and you have trouble turning a certain direction or tipping your head down, I mean, you may not know that as you're moving around, you're bending down to pick up your kids and you're doing your laundry, but all of a sudden you're done cleaning your house and you're toasted. It's like, it's not because you're getting old. Everyone wants to use that excuse of, because I'm getting older. And while there are things that happen,
they're like my age, and then I take offense to that.
Yeah, there's just a lot that we can do to continue to support our brains. Everyone wants to talk about the world of wellness and how we be more proactive about our health.
It doesn't mean you need 8,000 supplements.
No, and there's not enough people talking about how we need to be assessing brain function. It's so important. And so that brain optimization, that does kind of segue us back into just baseline testing. So we do hear this a lot more once we've had patients in the office and their family members come in. They're like, wow, this is interesting. I'd be very curious what my brain looks like.
Yeah.
And I do.
I just had a mom last week be like, as soon as my daughter's done, I'm going to sign myself up.
I just
we should do that. That should be happening all the time.
Yeah. And so these are all the reasons, top 5 that we put out. But like Dr. Dana said, we know there's more out there. So we would love if you guys commented on this. Let us know what else you think would be a good reason to get a neurological exam outside of having a neurological disorder.
I'd be interested to see what people come up with on that. And I think that, I have a lot more to say about all these categories. So I think if people like this episode and they're interested in what we're talking about, we can definitely dive deeper into each one of these. But definitely we have the thyroid one already. So I think go in pretty good detail about that. But let us know your thoughts. Let us know if you think we missed anything big of why people would need a neurological exam. I think there's definitely a lot of reasons, but we should start putting some information out there about this stuff specifically, because I think people don't know. And like you said, no one's educating anybody on this piece of it. It's like everybody knows they should go get baseline blood work, and everybody knows that they should make sure that their heart is beating appropriately, and everybody knows that, you know, they should check X, Y, and Z. But it's like but it's like there's no other way to do it, right? Like functional neurologists would really be like breaking the mold in that, because there's nobody else that's looking at your brain function, right? It's different than going and saying like, hey, I need an MRI because I have a headache. And you can't even get that test. You can't even get those tests if you're like, I feel fine, but I want to get it checked out. I mean, unless you have a ridiculous amount of money to shell out to just get it and pay cash, you can't. And then most of the time, if you're like, I feel good, you're not going to find anything. But it's like the function of the brain is so different than just looking at the structure of your brain. And I think that's where it could be life-changing for anybody, really.
I agree. So if you're listening to this and you followed it all the way through and you don't have a neurological disorder, it probably means you should call your local functional neurologist and get a test.
Get tested.
All right. Well, it was good to see you all. Please like, share, comment, give us your ideas. You guys are what's driving all the information that we're putting out. And we absolutely love doing this. We love providing the content and the information because we know that there's just so much that we could talk about. And there's so much
information. We always say we're going to keep it to 15, 20 minutes because that's what people are going to listen to. And then we just ramble. Mostly me, I feel like.
It's a group effort. But thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.